Hello, I'm Jen and I'm the Unapologetic Reader. Thanks for stopping by my channel. I want to make a video today about the books I picked up last weekend when Seattle was celebrating the Independent Bookstore weekend. And the city of Seattle actually joined together and there were 22 independent bookstores who were all participating, and there was a challenge to try and see if you could visit most of the stores, all of the stores, in one day. I love bookstores, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to come anywhere close to that. But I did visit half a dozen of those bookstores, and I think it goes without saying that I bought some books. So I thought it'd be really fun to show you guys the books that I picked up, because I'm really excited about them, and maybe it'll inspire you guys to pick up one of these, or maybe you already have read them. So without any further ado, here's the books that I picked up. First off, I picked up as many of the books in the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov as I could. I've only read the first book, Foundation, but I loved it. It's probably one of my favorite sci-fi books I've ever read, and I totally understand why everybody recommends it, and I'm kind of bummed I haven't read it earlier than that. So I picked up the Prelude to Foundation, which I'll be reading next. I picked up Second Foundation, Foundation's Edge. I really like kind of the old style cover on this one. Foundation and Earth, and Forward the Foundation, which I believe is the last one in the series. So I think I have the whole series now, except for the second book, the one that comes right after Foundation, but I figure I can pick that up while I'm reading the Prelude to Foundation. Then I went to one of my friend's bookshops called the Never Ending Bookshop, and I picked up the Never Ending Story by Michael Ende. I have actually never read this book. I've seen the movie. I didn't like the movie at all, but so many people have told me I would probably really like the book that I figured it was worth giving it a shot, and I kind of had to, because, you know, it was the Never Ending Bookshop, and what else do you buy there except the Never Ending Story? I am a giant fantasy reader as well, so I figured it was about time I picked up The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I am very intrigued to see what happens in this book that gets everyone chattering about it. The way I understand it, it's basically the main character is telling his life story, and it happens over a day, but there's a lot going on, and that idea just fascinates me, and a lot of readers and authors that I respect are raving about this book. So I figured it was time I picked up a copy for myself to see what all the chatter is about. This was a recommendation to me by the owner of the Never Ending Bookshop. She recommended I pick up Sabriel by Garth Nix. It is fantasy, and so I was cool with that, and she basically warned me that the second book in this series makes reading this one worthwhile. So I was warned this one's kind of a little bit slow to get into, but then the second one, it makes it totally worth it. And she said the second book in this series is actually the best sequel she has ever read. And second books can kind of tend to be a little bit hard. You know, they're usually like in the middle, and so they usually don't get rated very well. So I'm fascinated to see why that is, and if I agree with her. So that means I gotta read Sabriel to get to the sequel. So you've seen The Name of the Wind and Sabriel. I've mentioned fantasy. So yeah, there's going to be some Brandon Sanderson books in this as well. I discovered Brandon Sanderson a couple of years ago. One of my friends in my writing group recommended The Way of Kings to me, and she said it was one of her favorite fantasy books. I said, oh, okay, I'll read that. If you don't know, The Way of Kings is a giant book. I don't necessarily recommend that you go that route for your introduction to Brandon Sanderson, but it definitely let me know kind of what I was in for, and I adored that book. and I've read the sequel, and I'm dying for the third book that's supposed to come out finally this November. So needless to say though, I need some Brandon Sanderson in my life to get me through to November. So these next two are by him. I picked up Warbreaker, which is categorized on his website as a romance, which surprised me because although there are romantic relationships in some of the books of his that I've read, I wouldn't necessarily categorize any of them that way. I read romance books too, so that doesn't turn me off on it, but I'm curious to see why this is categorized that way. He has also talked about this book himself and mentioned that it's a magic system based on color, which I'm really intrigued by. There is a series, the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks, that is also a color-based magic system that I love. And I really trust Brandon Sanderson and his skill with magic systems, so I can't wait to see how that's applied in this book. I think either way, I'm going to end up loving it. And then the other Brandon Sanderson book I picked up was the Arcanum Unbounded. This is the giant bind-up of all the novellas from Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. There is a Stormlight novella in here. Stormlight is the series that The Way of Kings is in. So I'm definitely going to be reading that novella before November and the third book comes out. I don't know about the other ones if I'll read those. I kind of want to do some research online first and make sure that there aren't any spoilers in here for some of the books that I haven't read in the Cosmere series yet, but very excited for the Stormlight novella. Can't wait. I picked up a couple of Neil Gaiman books. The first one I picked up was American Gods, and this is actually the author's preferred text. It is a gorgeous book. I love the blues. I love the silhouette of the tree. It's just so pretty. It's got kind of that soft cover. I don't know why I'm rubbing it, like you can feel it through the camera or something. But I tried reading American Gods way back when I was in high school, and I couldn't really get into it. I hadn't been exposed to Neil Gaiman before, and I just don't think I was ready yet for his writing style. So I'm definitely giving this another shot. Obviously the Stars TV show has everyone all riled up about this. I can wait to see the TV show. I really want to give this one another try because I was enjoying what I was getting of the book. It was just a struggle for me to kind of understand what was happening at that time. So I picked this one up, and then by a complete fluke I walked into Page 2 Books, which is a used bookstore in Bothell, Washington, and I could not believe they had a hardcover of Anansi Boys by Neil Gaiman in their used section. There's nothing wrong with this book. It's gorgeous, and actually Anansi Boys is a spin-off book from the American Gods world. It's not really a sequel, but it does take place sort of in the same world that Neil Gaiman created for American Gods. So obviously I had to pick it up, and I do remember that I read this one when I was in high school, and I really liked this one. I can't remember what happens. I just remember that I made it through this one and I liked it. So I wanted to pick up a hard copy for myself because that copy I read in high school is long gone, no idea where it went. And it just felt like fate that it was sitting right there. And the owner, when she saw me bring it up to the counter, she said, "Oh, I knew this wasn't going to last very long. I just got that book in and put it on the shelf today." So timing and everything was perfect. It had to happen. Then I picked up The Know-It-All by A.J. Jacobs. A.J. Jacobs is an NPR contributor, and at one point in his life he set out to read the entire Encyclopedia Britannica from A to Z. Quite the undertaking. I'm fascinated by that concept, so I picked this up because I'm just intrigued as to why somebody would want to do that and whether or not he actually completed the challenge or not. So definitely gonna be reading this pretty soon. and I hope it holds my interest through the whole thing. But I mean, come on, how could you not? I love books about books. This is about a man who tries to read the entire Encyclopedia Britannica. It's a no-brainer. Speaking of books about books, I picked up The Libriomancer by Jim C. Hines. Apparently in this world, Libriomancer is someone who can, they work in a library and they catalog books for their potential magical use, like how magically valuable they are. And Libriomancer abilities basically mean they can reach into a book and they can make things real. So I think this picture is kind of like he's pulling a sword out of the book. The catch is they are not allowed to use this ability at all, ever, except in emergencies. Well, some vampires break into his library, so he considers that an emergency. I think most people would. And adventure ensues from there. It sounds a little silly, but I cannot resist. I mean, it's got libraries, it's got magic, it's got people pulling things out of books that are real. I mean, if I had that ability, there are definitely some things I would want to make real out of some books. So this one sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm really excited that it says it's book 1 in the Magic Ex Libris series, which makes me hopeful that maybe there's more. So if I like it, I can definitely continue on with that. We are almost done, guys. It's a lot of books, I know, but 6 bookstores, and of course I had to buy books at all of them. So when I went into Third Place Books, which is a used bookstore up in Lake Forest Park, I picked up I Am Malala, and this is by Malala Yousafzai. And a big part of why I want to read this is obviously, if you haven't heard, Malala was a young woman who she was trying to stand up for education rights for women and thought that women should have just as much right to an education as men, and the Taliban shot her because of it, and she survived. My channel is called The Unapologetic Reader, and what really is behind that is I don't think anybody should feel apologetic for anything that they're reading, and I think anyone should be allowed to read whatever they want to read. So obviously this comes near and dear to my heart because it just hurts my soul that there are still places in the world where women don't even have access to something that I completely take for granted, that I was just given an education and that I can go and read and nobody's going to stop me for it. So I think her story is going to be really inspiring. It's going to make me feel very proud to be a woman, and it's just time that I read her story for myself. Then I picked up, it was in the same store actually, Play of Shadows by Julie E. Cherneda, and this is the sequel to A Turn of Light, which is in the Night's Edge series. There are only 2 books out in the series right now. Back in 2014 there was an announcement made that the publisher had purchased the next 3 books in the series, but nothing has really happened since then. This is a really cool fantasy series. I haven't actually read the second book, but the first one was really cool. It was about this little farm town that sort of existed right next to sort of a parallel universe, and the main character, she had what everyone thought was an imaginary friend she called Wind. And they thought it was the wind, like she was a daydreamer, she talked to the wind. He's not. It's actually something way cooler. But I want to say that and not spoil it. So if you like fantasy, parallel dimensions, this story has some really cool, fantastical creatures in it. Julie Cherneda is actually an educated biologist, so you definitely see that coming into play with a lot of the creatures that she creates for her sci-fi and fantasy worlds. So I definitely suggest you pick it up. And I was excited to find this version because it's larger. It's not the mass market paperback. It's got the deckled edges, which I love. It's that nice big floppy paperback, so it's a lot easier to read. And I think that's kind of one of the benefits to shopping in used bookstores, is that sometimes you can find different versions of the same book, and you can kind of choose what will work best for your reading style. So very excited to pick this up. And finally, I picked up a book I've actually already read. This is The Heir of Navron by Michael J. Sullivan. This is the third bind-up book in the Rhaenyra Revelations trilogy. It's an amazing trilogy. It's an amazing series. Michael J. Sullivan also wrote a prequel series to the Rhaenyra Revelations, which is called the Rhaenyra Chronicles. I read that as well, and that's really good. So if you like fantasy, this follows two thieves, and one is an exceptional swordsman, and kind of their adventures that they go on. There's a lot of mystery built into here, and the dialogue between the two, I think, is what really kept me going through all of this. It's very witty, it's very clever. They have a very deep friendship, which is ironic because when they first met, they hated each other. So you kind of have that odd couple, and then they sort of end up becoming, you know, each other's best friends, and nobody can get between them, kind of a thing. I think you'd really like this. I actually listened to all of the books on Audible. They use the same narrator for the entire series. He does an incredible job. So if you like listening to audiobooks, I would highly recommend that you look up Michael J. Sullivan and check out the Rhaenyra Revelations series or the Rhaenyra Chronicles. You can kind of read on his website about the reading order. It's kind of flexible, so just go with whatever you want. I read the Rhaenyra Revelations before I read the Rhaenyra Chronicles, and I really like doing it that way. So that would be my recommendation. But I just picked this up. It was used, and I know I'm going to want to own all of the books eventually. So there you have it. That's all the books that I picked up. I definitely have some reading ahead of me. I'm really excited about these books. If you've read any of these books, go ahead and leave me a comment down below on what you thought of them. Or maybe you have some of these and you're looking forward to reading them too. I would love to hear your thoughts and talk about it. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. I am very new to this, so please be kind with your comments, but I'm always open to suggestions. I'd love to hear what kind of videos you guys would like to see. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!